So like full disclosure, we literally just got back like an hour ago, and I decided I was just gonna do the video right away so that one, I wouldn't forget stuff, and two, I wouldn't have to do my makeup again this week. Hello, knitting friends, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Kristen, and today we are talking about Maryland sheep and wool. I wanted to do a little recap and of course a haul and share with you my experience at Maryland Sheep and Wool this past weekend. Before we get started, what I'm wearing today is my Odyssey pullover. This is a pattern by me that I released earlier in 2026, and this is more or less what it looks like. So if you are keeping score, it is May and I am still wearing a wool sweater, even though in April we had days where it was 90 degrees. It is currently almost 57 in the middle of the afternoon. So we are having a cold spell right now. That just means more wear for my sweaters. Okay, this past weekend was Maryland Sheep and Wool here in Maryland. As you may have guessed, that is where I live, that is where I am from. And prior to the event, there were some other goings on that I was able to participate in as well. So I thought we would just take a little walk through the weekend's events. So I'm going to just start by popping a little montage of the weekend in here. And then we'll talk about what I did and more importantly, what I bought. So Maryland Sheep and Wool is, not as big as Rhinebeck, but there are some pre-festival events going on. So very popular yarn brand Magpie Fibers is located here in Maryland, up in Frederick. I say up, it's really more west. It's kind of like a diagonal, at least from where I am and from where the Sheep and Wool Festival is. And they do some pre-festival events. And for the last few years, there has been an indie dyer pop-up prior to the event the Friday before called Yarncentric. So I will just go through my particular order of events. Originally, I was planning to do one thing each day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but I kind of reevaluated my capacity for crowds of people and putting on makeup and leaving the house, and decided that I would do two things Friday and just one thing on Sunday to give myself a recovery day on the weekend. So, as I said, Magpie Fibers, located here in Maryland. Their flagship store is in Frederick, Maryland, and on the Maryland Sheep and Wool weekend, they have what they call Enablement Entanglement. So they had a whole bunch of classes. I didn't do anything with those. And then they had some visiting vendors that had yarn at the shop as well, and some other yarn related stuff. So my first stop on Friday was Magpie Fibers. Yarncentrick is also in Frederick. They're about a mile apart. So I wanted to get some steps in for the day, so I parked sort of in between them. If you're wondering and you are in town or thinking about this for next year, I parked in the Carroll Creek garage. It's a little bit closer to Magpie, but it's the I think public parking garage that is closest to being like right in the middle. So then I could walk from the garage to Magpie, Magpie to Yarncentric, and then back to the garage. You can do it. There's, like I said, just about a mile between Magpie and the Yarncentric location. However, it is uphill. So remember that if you were interested in doing that next year, it is an uphill walk. So I stopped by Magpie Fibers first, late Friday morning. It was very busy, as it usually is for these kinds of events. I was particularly interested in seeing what Twin Mountain Handcraft had last year, or perhaps the year before. I had bought some really cute stitch markers from them. And they were also going to have some visiting yarn from Wandering Flock. And I wanted to get some of their cotton lino that everyone has been raving about, which is a spring kind of summer yarn that is cotton, silk, linen, and alpaca. So the Magpie flagship store has a lot of Magpie yarn. They used to for a while sell some other brands. They don't really do that anymore. Occasionally I see some yarn there from Junction Fiber Mill, but that's about it. However, they have lots of other fun stuff. They have lots of other kind of craft forward stuff. So embroidery kits, cross stitch, they've got cards, they've got notebooks, pens, that kind of stuff. They've got some merch, but generally they only have their own yarn. So one thing I was considering at Magpie is that I still need another skein of the Swanky DK to finish my Winnie top, but I didn't bring it with me. And so I was looking at the Swanky DK in the color I'm using, which is Mesa, and it looked a little bit more muted and brown than what I think I've been working with. But since I didn't bring it with me, I couldn't really compare. So that was a mistake on my part. And I opted not to grab any of that, just in case it ended up being a super different color. I would rather wait for another time. This is only about 30 minutes for me to actually bring my whip up there so I can compare colors. So I did not grab any of that. I did look at the Twin Mountain Handcraft stuff that was there. I almost bought some buttons. I almost bought some stitch markers, but my plan for the weekend was to allow myself one purchase at each place that I was going. Still trying to keep things on a budget. And I know that last year at the holidays, Twin Mountain Handcraft had some really cute Rudolph stitch markers. Rudolph, the animated stop action. Is that what it's called? Stop action? Stop motion. Rudolph. I really want those, and I'm hoping they're going to make them again this year. So I decided not to do that. But I did snag some of the cotton lino. I have already wound it up because I want to start my project right away. So they did not have the full palette of summer colors. So I want to say the full palette is like 10 or 12 colors. And I think they had 5 there. They had this one, the pink. They had a pale purple, a kind of orangey rust, and a kind of off-white. I think that was it. They did not have any blues. I'm generally not really a pink person, but I was trying to decide between the pink and the off-white, and the off-white, so I don't know if you can see, but with this blend of fibers in here, you can see that there's like a little bit of kind of a brown undertone to this, little flecks of brown in there. And it made the whiter yarn actually just kind of look a little bit dirty. Maybe it doesn't look that way knit up, but in the skein it did. And that was throwing me off a little bit. So I decided to go ahead and go for the pink, which again, not my usual color, but I am happy to have gotten my hands on it. I really want to start swatching for my project, but again, I'm going to have to be trading needles with a project I already have underway to do that. So my Margot top is being knit on a US 4 in the round, and the recommended needle size for the Petite Pointel tank is a US 4. But once I get to the front and back split on the Margot, then I'm going to switch that to a size 3. So you tend to knit um, more loosely, working flat than in the round, and then I can get my needles. So, but this was my haul from Magpie. I got some of the cotton lino. I believe this is the same color that Jessie May uses in the pattern. That's fine. Like I said, I'm not usually a pink person, but I do think this is going to look really nice in the summer when I have a tan. I will eventually have a tan. I will not always look like this. So that's what I grabbed at Magpie. I also did have a chance to talk to Leslie from Twin Mountain Handcraft. I talked to, I'm sorry, I don't know her real name. She is Wool Wasted on Instagram, who works with Magpie. I talked to her for a few minutes. I even got to say hi to Damie. She was obviously, running around and very busy. But I get to say hi to her and give her a hug. And everyone there just seemed to be having a good time, in a great mood. They have, if you have never been there, their flagship store is in an old bank. So there's a vault in the back, and that's where they put like the like most special yarn, which just cracks me up. That is where all of the Wandering Flock yarns were. Bertie Parker was also there, and I love her jewelry, but that was just way out of my price range. Had I brought my husband, I may have pointed it out, but I didn't. I was on my own. So that was my first stop at Magpie. It was lovely. All those ladies are always so nice, so friendly. Everyone always seems to be having a good time. So from there, I walked down to Yarncentric, uphill at least, but is actually south on Market Street, to Yarncentric. Now, I had tickets, so it's a timed entrance. You got a ticket for a 2-hour period of time, 2-hour window to shop. Originally, I had planned to go in the morning, but all the morning tickets were sold out by the time I was buying my ticket, which ended up being fine. So I walked over there a little bit before my ticket time at 1 because I was hoping to grab some lunch, and they were going to have food trucks. And the last time I went to Yarncentric, which I am not sure if it was last year or the year before. I don't think it was last year because that was when the cat needed all the expensive medical stuff. I mean, we didn't have any extra cash. So I think it was the year before. They had a grilled cheese truck, and the grilled cheese truck had a crab grilled cheese. Now, they had a grilled cheese truck again. I do not know if it was the same one, though. And they didn't have any crab grilled cheese. So I don't know if it's a different company or if they just decided that crab grilled cheese was not economically feasible. But all of their grilled cheeses had things that I don't eat. So I was a vegetarian for a long time. I'm not anymore, but I don't eat mammals. So they had like a grilled cheese with brisket. They had a grilled cheese with some kind of pork. There was one with sausage, but I didn't eat any of those, and I didn't want to pay money for just a plain old grilled cheese. Now, what they had was loaded tater tots, which sounded delicious. I love tater tots. I love potatoes, but I love tater tots. I knew if I ate a big bowl full of, greasy tater tots covered in cheese, I would enjoy it for the time that I was eating it. And then like 20 minutes later, I would feel disgusting. So I didn't have that. And the other food truck, they're a coffee truck, which is great, but not food. And then they had an acai truck. I don't really know what that is. And I felt like a food truck wasn't the time or place for me to really try to figure it out. So I just skipped the food part. And by the time I had looked at everything anyway, it was time for me to go in. So as I said, Yarncentric is an indie dyer pop-up. Takes place the day before the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival weekend, with lots of small dyers who, either it's very competitive to get a spot at Maryland Sheep and Wool. It's also very expensive. So this is an opportunity for maybe dyers who aren't able to get a spot or aren't able to afford a spot at Maryland Sheep and Wool to still have a chance to sell their wares. They also had some special guests there, some ladies from a podcast. I had not heard of it, so I can't remember what it was called. They had a crochet amigurumi designer there, and it was very well attended. So the very first Yarncentric, they had it at the Frederick Fairgrounds. It poured rain. It was miserable. It was not it did not go well. But since they have moved into this space, it has been lovely. So very well attended, lots of happy looking customers, and it turned out to be a really beautiful day weather-wise. So I do think it would be smart, although maybe they're not allowed, if they could get some picnic tables or something for people to sit at, because they've got the food trucks and then everyone just sits in the grass. And it had been very rainy the day before, so the grass was wet. I think then that would be nice if they had some tables or something, but that's really neither here nor there. Um, so I wandered around there for a while. I actually didn't buy anything. I know, it's unbelievable. I was definitely tempted. So a place that I think was called Stone Cellar Fiberworks or something along those lines, but I will put the correct name here, had a 100% untreated Shiniko wool fingering weight yarn that looked very interesting. So my youngest son has been asking for me to knit him a pair of pink socks, and I don't have any pink fingering weight yarn. But I wasn't sure if, how well is a non-superwash, no nylon Shiniko wool going to stand up to sock wear and tear. I didn't know, and there wasn't enough signal in the space for me to like take a few minutes and research that. So I will definitely be keeping them in mind for the future for other projects. I don't do a lot of shawls. It might be nice for a sweater quantity, but I'm just was not in a position to be buying a sweater's quantity worth of yarn anyway, and I don't have any particular fingering weight sweaters in mind right now. But it did catch my eye, as did a blown cotton merino yarn from, again, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it had cedar in the name, but I will put the correct name here. This looked really interesting. It was a little pricey, so it was $32 a skein, and each skein had like 200-ish yards, maybe a little bit more, which means basically you could get a hat or a pair of mittens, perhaps. So she did have a shawl in the booth that she had used that yarn for that looked very nice. But I just, without a specific pattern in mind, I did not want to buy a skein of the yarn and then find out it wasn't going to work for whatever reason, because I haven't tried that particular kind of yarn before. I understand that because of its construction. So she said it was a chainette cotton tube with the merino wool blown into it. It doesn't have a lot of give or stretch. I'm not 100% sure what kind of project it would be good for. And, if I was going to purchase anything, it was going to be one skein. And then if it wasn't a good choice for something small, like a hat or a pair of mittens, I would just end up with like a weird skein. So both of those things did draw my eye, but I ultimately ended up not purchasing either of them. However, I've made notes so that I can keep them in mind for the future. There were lots of lovely indie dyers there. Fangirl Fibers was there. She had a Lord of the Rings collection that I sent my husband a picture of. And he said something about knitting him chainmail, and I just ignored him. And I believe it was the Fangirls Fiber booth also had the doodle packs that I have been wanting to look into. I kind of wanted to get one, but they're a little pricey, and I don't actually do that much color work. I just think the like entire concept of the doodle packs is creative, but would I actually use it? I don't know. But it's just that's from Pacific Knit Company, and she has like summer doodles and winter doodles, and then she has smaller packs that are like Arctic doodles and things. But it was nice to be able to like kind of take a look at them in person. Plies and Hellhounds was there, and they have like this beautiful moody dark kind of palette that I was looking at as well. But ultimately, a lot of like the sock yarns were calling to me. Like they were, but I don't, because they're indie dyers, and so I'm probably not going to buy a sweater's worth of something very variegated, but I might use it for socks. But I have so much sock yarn, so I actually ended up not buying anything at Yarncentric. And then, of course, finally on Saturday, it was time to go to Maryland Sheep and Wool. I wasn't 100% sure what time I wanted to get to the festival. So I'm not sure it was last year or the year before. We ended up in a huge backup. It is a one-lane road leading to the fairgrounds. And my youngest child really has very limited patience for basically everything. I wasn't sure what we were going to get, but ultimately decided we were going to leave the house at 10. That should get us there a little bit before 10:30. That way, even if we have to wait in a line, we're still hopefully inside the festival by 11. But actually, there was no backup this time at all for whatever reason. So we were like parked and out of the car by 10:30, and we actually got parking pretty close to the entrance. I'm not sure. It was very cold this morning, so it was still in the 40s by the time we got there, and there was a breeze. So maybe people were waiting for it to warm up, but it actually, again, as I said earlier, it's right now, it's 2 o'clock, it's 57 degrees, which is definitely warmer, but it is still cloudy and it's not super warm. So I don't know. There did seem to be quite a bit more traffic when we were leaving. So we went right into the festival. It was busy as usual. We pet lots of sheep. And I'm so sad because they give you a little stamp so that you can, leave. I don't know why you would have to. Maybe you just want to go back to your car and take stuff, whatever. It's not like there's anything nearby that like you're gonna like walk to and then come back. Just farms. But the stamp was a sheep this year. It was really cute. But then when we were petting the sheep, one decided he was gonna kind of like nibble on my hand, and he licked my stamp off. So like full disclosure, we literally just got back like an hour ago, and I decided I was just gonna do the video right away so that one, I wouldn't forget stuff, and two, I wouldn't have to do my makeup again this week to make a video. So I said at the beginning, oh, last weekend was Maryland Sheep. Well, no, it was like literally an hour ago. And I lost my Stampy. Neither here nor there. We pet lots of sheep. They were quite adorable. I didn't see as many babies as we usually have seen sometimes, but certainly plenty of sheep. I didn't see any goats. I do think we went in all of the barns, but maybe we didn't. They did not have rabbits. They did not have, sometimes there's like a little pen with alpacas or llamas. They did not have that either. But they had lots and lots of sheep. So we pet all kinds of sheep. And one of them, tried to eat my hand and a little bit my sweater too. And they, made lots of noise at us. And we saw some with like really big horns. And then we saw some hair sheep. Those are not cute. I don't like those. But we got all of our sheep petting mostly out of the way. Grabbed the kids some corn dogs. I am always disappointed by the food at Maryland Sheep and Wool at most festivals. As I said, I don't eat mammals. So unless you eat like corn dogs and lamb, there's not a whole lot there that's like food. Like there's ribbon fries. That's not a great meal. Just about as good as the bowl of tater tots. There's of course, ice cream and French fries and things. But we saw a place that said empanadas and milanesa, but they both had lamb. Disappointing for me, but my children got corn dogs and ice cream, so they were absolutely thrilled. And then we did a little bit of shopping, so it was a little much trying to move the kids through the halls and barns. So we made our way through the barns, the tents. We stopped by and saw the sheepdog for a little bit. We were just caught like the tail end of their sheepdog demonstration. So our dog is about 50% cattle dog. The other 50% of her is like big weenie chicken dog because she's scared of everything. I don't know what she would do if she saw an actual cow. But she does have that herding instinct. So if my sister's chihuahuas are like, she'll try to herd them. So my youngest was a little confused about the concept of a sheepdog. And I was like, well, this is what our dog Thistle would do if we had cattle and we trained her, I guess. She direct the sheep, tell them what to do and where to go, and make sure none of them get lost. We made it at Sheep and Wool about 2 hours. I assumed that would be my youngest son's limit for walking and interacting with the public, and I was about right. So right about at the 2 hour mark, he started, tired, I want to go home, I'm ready to leave. Like, of course you are, because you got a corn dog and ice cream and you got all of your stuff. So that was about everything we experienced at Maryland Sheep and Wool, but I did make 2 purchases. I figured that since I didn't buy anything at Yarncentric, I could get 2 things at the Maryland Sheep and Wool. So one is for me, the other is actually for my kids. So first thing I got for me, and I haven't even opened it yet, is this cute little Notions pouch from Thread and Maple. I'll pop this open. A little place for your scissors, yarn needles. Got other, pouch here. You can fit some other stuff in there. And it has a magnetic closure. And then the back has a little zip. This is where you can put your stitch markers. So all of the little Notions here come in the pouch. So a little set of stitch markers, little tiny skizzers, and a couple of, just dropped one, 2 different sizes of yarn needles. And then, like I said, one side has another pouch you can put some stuff in. So really cute. The Thread and Maple stuff is so nice, and it's so expensive. So I wasn't getting anything other than this teeny tiny little thing. So right next to the Thread and Maple booth was the Daedalus booth with the e-spinners. My husband looks at me, he's like, did you see those e-spinners? I'm like, do not buy me that. I do not want it. I already have a spinning wheel that I do not use. He'll get these ideas in his head. And it's usually something like the last weird thing he got me. Oh, for Christmas, he got me one of the like sewing pattern projectors. I'm like, I'm never gonna use this. Like he wants to like make my life easier and also more technological. I'm like, I don't want an e-spinner. Do not get that. However, the booth we just went in, Thread and Maple, has some very nice stuff I'm certainly never going to buy for myself. If you want to get me something nice, that is an excellent choice. So yeah, the Thread and Maple stuff, a little pricey, but I splurged a little bit on this tiny little Notions pouch that I can have with me easily in any kind of project bag. And it just has the prettiest wine color. So that was my gift for me. And then these other 2 purchases are yarn, but they're not actually for me. So as I said, my youngest has been asking me to make him a pair of pink socks, and I don't have any pink yarn. So we were in the main exhibition hall. We'd stopped in a couple of yarn booths. I wasn't seeing anything that looked really like pink like he wanted. And almost at the end of the exhibition hall, I saw Kim Dye's yarn. I said, let's go in here and see what Kim has. And so he picked out this. This is called Indie Dyer Barbie. That's adorable. This is her Napoleon sock. So it is an 80/20 superwash merino and silk. Maybe not ideal for kids' socks, but I think it's going to be fine. He doesn't even really wear socks all that much. Like as soon as he gets home from school, his socks are off. So I don't know why, but he wanted a pair of pink socks. Could I have made a much more economical purchase at Knit Picks? Of course. I figured we're here, it'd be a nice opportunity for them for him to pick out a sock yarn that he likes. He'd seen some other yarns along the way, but they were like not a sock yarn or whatever. Whatever the case may be, I thought we'll splurge a little bit. I'll have leftovers to use for something. He's a small kid. He's only almost 12, but he's very small. Like you would probably think he was 8 at most. So he picked out this. And then my other son apparently just decided that since I told Ollie I was going to make him socks, that he could pick out a skein of yarn for socks. And so we grabbed this one that he liked. Well, there we go. And I kind of felt like he grabbed it at random, but then we looked at the color name, and that Thistle is the name of our dog. So it felt like it was meant to be. So this is for a pair of socks for my oldest. This is also the Napoleon sock. And then this one for my youngest, 4 socks. And then my oldest, his feet are as big as mine now. So I don't think there's going to be any leftovers from this, although I could share socks. But this, there should be maybe a little bit of leftovers for another project, and we shall see. So apparently I've got 2 pair of socks in my future, not for me, for my children. All right, friends, so that was my Maryland Sheep and Wool experience this year. Had a nice time at all of the events I went to. I did not overspend. I do wish I'd seen some more people that I know. I did, talk to a few people who said they were going to be at either Yarncentric or the fairgrounds, and unfortunately I didn't bump into anybody I know, which is always a bummer. Maybe next year we shall see. Or I don't know if Rhinebeck is in the cards for us this year. I feel it's unlikely, but you never know. So if this was my only Fiber Festival experience this year, it was lovely. I had a nice time. I got some nice stuff. I am very excited. Not really to cast on socks for my children, but I am excited to start using that cotton lino and get started on my Petite Pointel tank. So if you were at the festival this weekend, do leave a comment and let me know what you thought, what you did, what you bought, whether you had a good time. If there's anything I missed this year that I should definitely be on the lookout for next year. If you got any super interesting yarn or fibers, I would certainly love to hear about those. As I said, I didn't really have as much time as perhaps I could have at the festival, really able to look in depth at the different vendors with 2 kids in tow. But overall, I still had a lovely time, and if you were there, I hope that you did too. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's video. If you enjoyed it, took something from it, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Media Peruana. And I will see you soon in another video.